know what you did last summer, Joe Sixpack. You drank a lot of this.
You betcha.
I drank a lot of this. We're going to talk about our favorite beers from the summer.
Hey, we're deep into the Major League Baseball playoffs, and once again, no Phillies. Nonetheless, we're going to talk about beer and baseball.
He's Joe Sixpack. I'm Glen Macnow. We're at the Conshohocken Brewing Company King of Prussia tap room for a new season of What's Brewing.
What's Brewing, brought to you in part by Monco Makers, powered by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board, download the app, and by the Conshohocken Brewing Company, now with 5 locations.
Ready? Fire!
Whoa! Hey, do you guys want to come with us?
Hey, welcome to a brand new season of What's Brewing, our 3rd season. We're delighted to be back on the air in NBC Sports Philadelphia. Noted beer authority Joe Sixpack. Nice to see you again, buddy.
Glad to be back. Can't believe they re-upped this. But,
I know. Shh, it's a scam. I'm Glen Macnow. We fool them. By the way, you can follow the show on Twitter at What's Brewing. You can follow Joe at Beer Radar, Beer_Radar, and I am at Real Glen Macnow. All right, back to business. Haven't seen you through most of the summer, so we're gonna review the summer and our favorite beers. I want to go first.
Okay, go for it.
I love this beer I traveled a little bit this summer. I wrote a book with Big Daddy Graham of WIP, which you contributed a chapter.
Yes.
The new book of Philadelphia Sports List is going to be out at the end of October. Looking forward to that. But I traveled up a couple times to New England, Cape Cod, visited family, and this was my favorite beer of the summer, Lord Hobo Hazy Angelica Hazy Orange IPA. I want to give a little tip. You know I'm a sucker for this stuff.
I know you are, but what is the beer scene like up there in Cape Cod?
It's, well, there's the local beer, the Cape Cod beer, but as I was there this summer, 2 new little breweries opened on Cape Cod. So there's a good half a dozen to 8 kind of small, breweries where they make the stuff in-house, and you can go and have a nice time. It's getting, like everywhere else, it's a lot better than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So here's to you. Tell me what you think.
Hazy, as it's advertised.
Hazy is what they do, but this is not an IPA. It's a wheat beer with a hazy, juicy New England kind of flavor to it.
They call it an IPA on the cover,
okay.
but
Right.
it's made with wheat, so I can see that
All
being
right, it's a
part
wheat
of the whole-
IPA.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting. It's actually a little bit light-bodied, which surprises me, given that it's a wheat beer. You would expect a little bit more body on it, but it's pretty refreshing. I could see this being a good hot weather cooler.
It's a summertime sit outs that we went to a barbecue, right? And they had ribs and lobster. It was a good barbecue, and drank a lot of this. 5.5%. So you can drink a lot of it, and I do think it's the marriage of like a Belgian wheat beer with a New England IPA.
Yeah, there is a little bit of spiciness to it as well. Yeah, it's a pretty decent.
All right,
beer.
what about you?
All right, so
Go to any breweries this summer?
I did go to a few, and I'm going to tell you about them in a moment. But
I like this.
the big trip was this year. I took a bunch of local, Philly beer fans out to Alaska. We started on it. We did a
That's
cruise,
a great thing.
Cruise ship from Seattle
Yeah.
up to Juneau.
I did
and
that a few years ago. It's great.
The beer was outstanding, and it was a great scene, and we had a lot of fun drinking a lot of their beers, but one of the favorites was this Elysian Spacedust, an IPA.
All right.
Obviously, the West Coast, or Pacific Northwest, known for its IPAs. And this one's gotten
But
pretty
a whole
popular.
different style. The West Coast IPA is so different from. See, this is the hazy New England flavor. The West
Exactly.
Coast are a lot crisper, maybe a little more bitter.
Yeah, typically more bitter, exactly. Cheers. It's a little bit more, it is definitely more bitter. It doesn't have quite the hop aroma that
Right.
Angelica
Yes,
has.
it is not, as they say, as hop forward, as they say. I like it. What's the percentage on this?
That's a great question, Glenn. I wish I knew right off the top of my head. 8.2%,
Okay,
so it's a little bit stronger than normal.
Uh-huh.
So that was a great cruise. We did a lot. We hit many breweries on it, and as you know, I'm lining up another brewery.
Yeah, where are we
cruise,
going next?
In 2020, we're going to be going to France, and you can get lots of information about that from my website at Philly Beer World.
Life is really a scam, isn't it?
I call it exploration, Glenn.
All right, you got around this summer.
I did, and I went back, and thanks to the ever-intrusive Google Maps, I was able to figure out everywhere I went this summer.
How many breweries did you go to?
I hit 21.
21. I want to see if you can give me all 21 in 1 minute. Ready, get set, go.
All right, I did a nice cruise, a little tour of South Jersey's breweries, 8 and Sand, Death of the Fox, Neck of the Woods, and Bonesaw Brewing. Really nice quadruple of...
You're never going to make it in a minute.
I'm sorry, I'll speed it up. Iron Hill and Westchester, that was a go-to.
Sure.
Free Will in Bucks County.
Good.
The new Guinness Brewery in Baltimore, a lot of fun there. Right next door almost to it, Heavy Season Baltimore, where I got to say hello to my old friend Chris Leonard, who used to be a brewer up here in the Philadelphia area. Out in Alaska, I was able to cheat by hitting a lot of them out there. Juneau, and I got to Alaskan Brewery, one of my go-to places, outstanding smoked porter, Klondike and Skagway in the little town of Skagway.
Yeah, it's a great little town.
Baldwin Street in Ketchikan, tiny brewery that was actually open at 10 in the morning for us. They know their folks there. Then we stopped in Victoria, British Columbia.
Beautiful
and hit
town.
Swan as an outstanding
Go to the Orchard
town.
Gardens up there, that beautiful thing.
I did not because we only had one evening there, but I
you
did
drank.
hit the Swans, exactly, that Swans brewery there. Back in Seattle, Peddler, Northwest Peaks, Holy Mountain, Elysian, two classics, Red Hook and Pike Place, one of my favorite breweries. And then back here in the local area, Wallen Paul Pack Brewing in the Poconos, and Bill's Best and Glenside. That I do.
Minute 22. Didn't quite make it. All right, real fast. Biggest surprise that you went to?
Not necessarily surprised because I had been hearing about it, but Bonesaw in South Jersey, I tell folks, you got to go hit this place. It's a great scene, nice, beautiful brewery, lots of really good beer.
Good stuff. When we get back, crimes against humanity, vendors at ball games, cheating the customers. We'll tell you why, how, coming up next on What's Brewing.
I'm Joe Sixpack. I love beer and I love travel. I've visited great breweries around the world, and I'm inviting you to join me on my next expedition to France. Yes, they make beer in France. We'll travel the Seine on a luxury river cruise from Paris to Normandy. We'll visit breweries, explore the sights, drink great beer, and maybe some wine. Join me in October 2020. Just visit my website at phillybeerworld.com. Let's discover a world of beer together.
Ready? Fire!
Whoa! Hey, do you guys want to come with us?
Welcome back to What's Brewing from the Conshohocken Brewing Company, King of Prussia Tap Room with Joe Sixpack. I'm Glen Macnow. This is, this is a time you kind of give me the news that's going on right now.
I wanted to catch us up a little bit on what happened over the summer because we saw a number of new things going on in town. We've had 3 new breweries open up in the city in Philly. Triple Bottom is probably the most notable. It opened up on Spring Garden Street, which has turned in that little area around 10th or 11th, and Spring Garden has turned into a nice little destination because in addition to Triple Bottom, you have Love City and Roy Pitts right there.
Yeah.
And Yards is right down the street from there, so it's a nice spot. Also opening up in the city was Dock Street Brewing, their second location on
to see that.
Washington Avenue, and a new one, great name, Punch Buggy, opening up in Kensington. Also in town, 2 Montgomery County breweries opened up taproom locations inside the city. One is Bald Birds, which opened up in Manioc. I've been there already. And brand new, just opened up this month, is Workhorse in Center City, just opened up. Finally, in terms of new openings, Iron Hill just announced that it's going to open up a production brewery, full-scale production brewery with a tap room out in Exton.
Interesting. I know they're doing more canning. They're going to be getting out more, you think?
Yeah, I think, and they, it'll give them a location to produce more beer for all their other locations.
Now, speaking of interesting beers that have come on this summer, you told me that Yingling's got really what seems a smart partnership for them.
Yeah, just announced is the Hershey's Chocolate Porter. Everybody knows Yingling Porter. They're now teaming up with Hershey's. They've added chocolate to the beer. I haven't had a taste of it. I'm really looking forward to it.
I think we need that for a future show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would definitely be interested in that. And Yards has got some news.
Yeah, Yards has just announced that they've made lagers in the past. Very small production, but now they're actually going to put it in a can and produce it along with the rest of their beer. So that's a nice development.
Very nice. Good to hear that. All good news, all growing. The business is great. We're delighted with
Not
that.
so fast, Glenn.
Okay, that's right, because there's been a pattern now. Some bad things going on, mostly at games and stuff. You had a good story here, and we've got the video to show it.
I categorize these as crimes against humanity. Down in Mexico City in a soccer stadium there, we have a video of vendors being caught in the act of watering down beer. This is horrible. This is just,
So what, they put ice in the cup and then the beer?
Exactly, and it's just, beer is expensive enough in a stadium. Watering it down just seems to be just bad.
I have a friend, Joe Chaga, who actually puts ice in his beer, likes it better that way.
I know people do it, but he's
it's an
still
oddball thing to do.
But he buys the whole beer.
Okay, so this thing of putting ice in the beer, that is horrible.
Yes.
I got worse, okay?
Go for
By
it.
the way, yours was in Mexico? Mine is in Mexico, Mexican soccer stadium, Santos Laguna game in late July. You can see this. Vendors are getting caught on camera emptying leftover beer into a bucket and then pouring beer out of that bucket to new fans. Awful.
The dregs. They're sharing the dregs.
Yes, it is literally the dregs. I don't want anybody's blowback,
Bodily fluids.
No, that's not good at all.
That's horrible.
Look, we know that the Phillies are not in the postseason. We've come to grips with that, right?
Some of us.
Some people are enjoying the playoffs. When we come back, we're going to give you a little bit of a great history of beer and baseball, like hand in glove, from the Conshohocken Brewing Company, King of Prussia Tap Room, Joe Sixpack, Glen Macnow. What's brewing? Hi, it's Glen Macnow. You've seen some of our Conshohocken Brewing Company spots on this show, so I'd like to invite you to come and check them out. You can find us in Conshohocken, Bridgeport, Phoenixville, King of Prussia, and here in Havertown, where I'm enjoying an award-winning Puddler's Row right now. It's one of our year-round core beers, along with Type A IPA and user-friendly Blonde Ale. We've also got exciting seasonal beers, like Blood Money IPA, Philly Vice, and our Unfiltered IPA series. And come hungry. From burgers and wings to salads and small bites, there's something for everyone. Don't leave without trying the amazing cheese curds. The warm weather is here, so you can enjoy yourself on one of our outdoor spaces. And good news, you can find Conshohocken beers at grocery stores, distributors, and restaurants throughout PA, South Jersey, and Delaware. So get yourself to Conshohocken Brewing Company. I'll meet you at the bar. Hey, welcome back to What's Brewing from the Conshohocken Brewing Company, King of Prussia Tap Room. Joe Sixpack, Glen Macnow. The baseball season, well, for the Phillies, it's been over now for a couple weeks. It does go on around the rest of America. I know you're bummed. You're still bummed.
I am. I had such high hopes this season. Were those hopes misplaced, Glenn? I'm not sure.
Well, the pitching staff was misplaced.
Yeah.
That was really the problem with the Phillies. We'll see how that plays out. Always confident for next year, my friend. All right. I am going to give you, Joe, I'm going to cheer you up.
All right.
I'm going to give you the history of baseball and beer in 6 short stories. Jump in wherever. Ready?
Okay.
Story number 1, you know this. Baseball started out as a saloon game, and most of the teams back then represented saloons from New England out to like the D.C. area. And one of the first time anybody could find something written about baseball and beer, 1846, the New York Knickerbockers played the New York Baseball Club, and in the newspaper after the game it said, For the Knickerbockers, winning or losing was less important than the champagne suppers that followed their games.
Yeah, I could see that. You get that feel like baseball did have weird and very sort of working class origins.
Yeah.
So beer and baseball at the birth seems.
Well, that's where I'm going right now. 1880s, binge drinking was really a problem in the country. We've talked about that when we talked about prohibition. Teams would lose players to the demon alcohol. The National League, there was only the National League then, the owners wanted to ban beer among the players. There was no beer sales at the ball games. Very smart businessmen came around and started the American Association in 1882. 6 of the 8 team owners were brewery owners, and they sold beer at the games.
Yeah, sure. I mean, breweries have owned plenty of teams. The Yankees, the Cardinals, the Brewers,
Augie
obviously.
Busch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been owned by beer makers over the years.
It really helped attendance in the American Association so much that 6 years later, National League owners losing attendance followed suit. The American Association soon went out of business. Story number 3, 1931, Philadelphia, World Series, Philadelphia A's, St. Louis Cardinals. It was prohibition at the time. President Herbert Hoover came to throw out the first pitch. He was greeted with boos and a chant of, "We want beer. We want beer." It became a national scandal.
Exactly. That's famous because that ended up resulting in him losing re-election to FDR, who promised the end of prohibition.
Yes, people thought it was the Depression. Now it's people wanted booze.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we booed the president at the World Series. That's pretty.
That's a Philly thing.
That's a thing. All right, let's move ahead. I want to move to the young Joe Sixpack days when you were a kid, and beer signage was everywhere. We got this great picture here. Connie Mack Stadium back in the day. You see the Ballantine sign?
I'm glad you brought the wallet size here, Glenn.
Yeah. Hi there. All right. Tell me about that Ballantine sign.
Well, I grew up looking at that for so many of my early years. It was iconic. The Ballantine beer scoreboard in right field at Connie Mack or Shibe Park, whatever you wanted to call it. As I've heard, only 2 players ever hit balls over it. One was a guy named Joe Adcock, who I don't think I ever saw play.
Big first baseman for Milwaukee.
Milwaukee Braves, right? Mm-hmm. And my childhood hero, Dick Allen.
Huge bat.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, along those lines, early days of baseball, when they started putting beer advertising on TV, right? The marriage of beer and baseball and TV. The Washington Senators at the time had an announcer named Bob Wolf, and he was required to do ads for cigarettes and beer. He neither smoked nor drank. And he would have to come on between innings and say, well, the Senators are down 3-1, but I am enjoying a Georgetown ale, Old Georgetown. You know that beer?
No, never.
Well, that's what he drank. And the camera caught him one time going like this. Right? Which I would never do with a Conchi beer. So they hired a guy, Johnny Batchelor, to drink the beer and do the ads. That was his only job, was come on, drink beer and do the ads. The problem was they had a double header, and drinking beer every half inning, he got so drunk that he fell over on TV. Story number 5.
Okay.
1970s, baseball's popularity is down. Cleveland Indians, Bill Veeck, the owner at the time, decided, hey, you know what'll get people in here? 10-cent Stroh's nights, 10-cent beers.
To see the what was it, the Indians, did you say
Indians,
at that time?
yeah, they were
a horrible
bad.
team back then. I would pay to go to a ball game and would drink 10-cent beers any day.
23,000 people showed up.
Yeah.
They bought 65,000 cups by the 4th inning. So that's 3 cups a person. And figure that there's kids, there's old ladies, right? Not everybody's drinking.
Yeah.
Half the crowd is drinking. They would have had 6 by that time. What happens is a woman runs into the on-deck circle and flashes, naked. A naked guy runs onto the field, streaks, and slides into second base. Another Indian fans run onto the field and steals the glove off of Jeff Burrows, who's playing for the Rangers, who they were playing. The thing goes so crazy. Billy Martin, the Texas manager, runs on, punches somebody. They cancel the game, and it was a forfeit, which baseball doesn't have a lot of forfeits.
Right.
Good times.
That's, beer puts the fun into baseball sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. Story number 6, and everybody knows this. It goes back to advertising in baseball. Miller came out, what is the 70s?
Miller Lite.
Yeah, Miller Lite.
Exactly. In the early 70s, it was, the first really highly advertised light beer.
And the smart thing was they didn't call it diet beer.
Right, exactly.
They called it less filling.
Less filling, and they brought in ex-jocks, who were not dieters.
Right. Yogi Berra, Marv Throneberry, Bubba Smith.
Right.
But the best one, and the most famous one we're going to show you now, this is the great Bob Uecker in the iconic Miller Lite commercial.
I love them. These fans know I drink Lite because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always want.
I love that spot, and here's the thing. I must be in the front row. People still say.
Yeah, absolutely. It became, what is that? We're talking 40 years later, people still using that line. So very, very famous.
Beer and baseball, did that help you get over your Phillies angst here?
Yeah, almost.
Maybe a little bit. All right, coming up, we got a great guest. His name is Alan Gladish. He is a micro malt. What is
A micro maltster. He is
micro
making
maltster
malt for our brewers.
Oh, I appreciate that. We're going to talk to him next on What's Brewing.
I'm Joe Sixpack. I love beer and I love travel. I've visited great breweries around the world, and I'm inviting you to join me on my next expedition to France. Yes, they make beer in France. We'll travel the Seine on a luxury river cruise from Paris to Normandy. We'll visit breweries, explore the sights, drink great beer, and maybe some wine. Join me in October 2020. Just visit my website at phillybeerworld.com. Let's discover a world of beer together.
Welcome back to What's Brewing. Joe Sixpack, Glen Macnow. By the way, at Beer Radar, on Twitter. I'm at Real Glen Macnow. We're at the Conshohocken Brewing Company, King of Prussia tap room on a beautiful afternoon. Everybody enjoying happy hour. One thing we've enjoyed doing on this show, involving our audience, letting them pick their favorite beers. We've done these brew downs over the last couple of years. Joe Sixpack, this is our third. You want to just
Third
review
year, the first 2 years we did IPAs.
Yeah.
First year, Trogue's Nimble Giant was the winner.
Fine one.
And last year, in the bigger bracket, we had Tired Hands Alien Church won for the IPAs. But we decided this year that we're going to move away from IPAs to have a little bit more involvement in some of the other styles of beers out there. So I put together a bracket. A lot of thought went into this.
brackets.
In which we have 4 separate categories: dark beers, Pilsner, which is like the classic Philly style beer, I think, sour or tart beers, and flavored beers. And we've got 8 beers in each one of them, 32 different breweries producing them.
Beautiful.
And we're going to run down a bracket of all of them and see which is the favorite of our Philly viewers.
So follow us on Twitter and you will get to vote and choose your favorite of all of those varieties of beer. Always fun. All right, today, special guest.
Yes, well,
The man came with some very odd looking beer.
Exactly.
I don't know if I can drink this.
IPAs are really where so much of the interest is, and that's all about hops. But I wanted to bring Alan Gladish from Double Eagle Malt Company on the show today with us to talk about malt, which is one of the other ingredients of beers. Yeah. And I think we'll learn a lot on this episode here. So Alan, welcome to What's Brewing.
Thanks, nice to be here.
So you have in fact brought a lot of malt with you, but first of all, tell us exactly what is malt?
All right, well, malt is one of the most underappreciated ingredients in beer. Everybody is chasing the next hop, and IPAs are all the rage and so on. So what I learned about malt way back when I was homebrewing in the 70s. Malt really became very important to me. We attended the homebrew conference in Philly and sat through a conference with John Mallett, who was writing this book at the time on malt.
Right.
And I became really intrigued.
That's about the first time I met you. Now, in front of us, you've brought malt with you. These look like seeds. What are they?
Yeah, that's barley, basically, that's been modified so that the starches are exposed for the brewer to turn into sweet wort, if you will, and ferment. So what we're doing is we're actually modifying the grain. We contract with farmers to grow specific types of barley for us that are malting varieties.
Right.
And we go through a process of steeping, germinating, and kilning. And each one of those 3 different processes adds us, it can be adjusted to produce different types of product.
So I know Glenn's got his eye on this liquid in front of us here.
No, yeah, it's interesting. You see the spectrum of light to dark, but then behind it you have these little mason jars.
Yeah.
Of what is that beer?
Well,
What is that? What do we got there?
So what we have here is a new method for sensory analysis. In the old days, until very recently, brewers would actually chew the malt.
Right.
And try to get a sense of what kind of flavor you can get out of the malt. But about 2 or 3 years ago,
Tastes like cereal.
Yeah,
Exactly. It is a cereal.
It is a cereal, in fact. So the ASPC,
You can put that in a bowl with some milk and sugar, and things are
Yeah.
good.
It's Fruit Loops. It's amazing. So the American Society of Brewing Chemists developed in concert with Briest Malting Company a new malt sensory analysis program, which allows you to make a wort tea. Basically, it's a malt tea from steeping grain in hot water for about 15 minutes and then running it through a filter.
So the idea here is that if you want to taste these, that this is not something that the public would ever have. This is something from brewers to taste to see what the character of the grain is.
Right.
So there's not alcohol in this per se. This is the malt.
That's right.
In a liquid form.
It's a malt tea. You can't really tell much of a difference in the color between these, but once you start making the teas, you can actually get a good sense of
Right.
it.
It's substantially darker.
We're riddling out more cereal flavors and bread flavors in this. You get a lot of sense of some depth of flavor that you don't get in the Pilsners. Mm-hmm. And then the next one, the one next to it is actually a caramel.
A caramel malt.
Caramel
okay.
malt. So this is actually converted to sugar already.
A little bit more sugary then, I'm sure, yeah.
All right, building blocks, malt is important, and here's where it goes.
Right, and this one you just brought in, this just showed up on the market, you say? The
A couple
Trogs
weeks ago, yeah.
Trail Day Dry Hopped Pale Ale.
Right.
Your malt is in here.
Yeah. It's actually not malt, it's raw wheat.
Oh, I'm sorry,
But
raw.
it's sourced from our Lancaster County farmer who does a lot of our malt, grows a lot of our malt barley for us.
Right, that's the other notable thing about your company is that you're doing business with local farmers.
Exclusively.
Yeah.
And actually that's a mission that we started out with is really promoting local farmers and trying to make that connection between farmers and consumers.
Right.
Consumers are always looking for local ingredients, but why not in beer?
Exactly.
So we're looking to brewers to help channel that local product back to the consumer.
And it's a great slogan on the glass, grain with a higher purpose.
By that I mean, grain with a higher purpose is supporting farmers, and it also goes to making delicious products. So both of them are higher purpose.
We're in favor of all of those things.
Yeah, right.
Alan Gladish, a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming
You're quite
by.
welcome. Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening. Tell your friends every Saturday night on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can catch us occasionally in repeats during the week. Want to thank everybody here, Conshohocken Brewing Company, King of Prussia Tap Room. We'll be back next week on What's Brewing.
What's Brewing, brought to you in part by Monco Makers, powered by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board, download the app, and by the Conshohocken Brewing Company, now with 5 locations.